Hi everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, March 7th, 2022, and this is episode 212. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I'm coming to you from the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, about 100 kilometers or 60 miles east of Vancouver. I hope you've all had a good week. Things have been good here close to home, but I have continued to watch with horror and a heavy heart all of the images coming out of Ukraine. It is truly inconceivable that something like this can be happening in this day and age. Have we learned nothing from history? It is so very difficult to watch and feel so helpless. And I just once again want to send out my best wishes to all of those people in Ukraine and all of those who are affected by these horrific events. I think it's going to be a fairly short episode this week. I only have 3 projects to talk about, none of which are finished. But before I do, I just want to remind you that the Year of the Stash Make-Along is taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. You can find a link to the group in the down bar if you are on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're on the blog. So feel free to jump in anytime. There is a general Year of the Stash chatter thread, and there's also a monthly personal sock yarn club knit along taking place. So just read the first post of all the relevant threads, and that'll give you all of the information you need to know to participate. The more the merrier, so come on by. My first project is actually my March project for the Personal Sock Yarn Club, and it's a pair of socks I am knitting from this gorgeous yarn from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It is her bedazzled base, so there's a little bit of stellina in there. I'm not sure if the camera is picking that up or not. I think a little bit. It is the colorway All That Was Green and Glorious, and that is a reference to the Shire in The Hobbit, if I'm remembering correctly. I've really enjoyed working with this yarn. I am also knitting this pair of socks as part of the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Mio Mel, which is the Make It Your Own Make-Along. And that is taking place in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Yarns Ravelry group. You get to choose your own theme for each quarter, and I've chosen the 4 seasons. And to me, this was just a very spring-like yarn. Not only does it remind me of all the new growth that's happening here in spring, but also to me it just screams St. Patrick's Day, which happens to take place here in March in the spring. So I've really enjoyed working with this. So rather than do just my usual plain vanilla sock, I thought I would try out a new pattern. I'm always interested in different heels that you can use with self-striping yarn. Most often I'll either do a traditional heel flap and gusset or a short row heel. The thing with the traditional heel flap and gusset is sometimes you need to do some yarn management in order to maintain the striping order as set out, or also sometimes the stripes are distorted over the instep area because you are working with more stitches in that area. The disadvantage of a short row heel, if you're doing it with just the self-striping yarn, is again it can disrupt that striping pattern, or else if you choose to use a coordinating mini skein or some scrap yarn or some yarn from the other end of the ball, then you end up having to weave in some ends. I have on occasion done an afterthought heel. I think they look really nice on self-striping yarn, especially when you get that bullseye effect. But I'm not really crazy about the process, and they don't fit me quite as well as either of the other 2 heels. So when I saw this new pattern by Sarah Jordan, I thought I would give it a try. So I'm pronouncing it Sokotoa. It's actually a mnemonic device for learning some procedures to do with trigonometry. But I'm not sure if you can see the heel here. So obviously she's used them for her sample sock. She used that heel on a self-striping yarn. And what it is, there you go, there's my first sock here. You do a triangular gusset on the back of your leg, then you do a short row heel, and then you do a triangular gusset on the bottom of your foot. So that's the results. I'm going to turn it around a little bit on the sock blocker so you can get a better look at that gusset, or those gussets. There you can see here, there's the short row heel, and then I've just finished the gusset on the bottom of the foot here. Now you work this heel completely in the round except when it comes to the short row heel part. It took me quite a bit of trial and error, aka knitting the first half of the sock several times, or the first half of the heel and gusset several times in order to line up the stripes so that this stripe was centered over this short row heel area. And because of the way it's knit, the striping here, it ended up with two stripes basically merging, and you can see they didn't knit up quite the same way as the previous stripes did, but not too bad. It took me a lot longer to achieve the same results on the other sock, and that turned out to be because it's hand-dyed yarn, because the stripes aren't all exactly the same width. I was starting my gusset the same distance from the end of the stripe as the other sock, but it wasn't knitting up the same, so I ended up having to start it a little bit earlier in the stripe, and I finally managed to achieve more or less the same results and get that heel just out of this speckled part. But then, as you can see, the striping turned out quite a bit differently on the second sock with the way the colors were distributed. I have to say I really enjoyed working this heel. Especially I got to try it numerous times. I liked doing the gusset increases. I substituted a German short row heel for the wrap and turn method that was described in the pattern, and I liked how it looked. I liked there weren't any big gaps, and yeah, I really liked everything about working this heel. Unfortunately, it doesn't really fit me. I think this would be a really good pattern for someone who has trouble wearing a sock that has like an afterthought or a traditional short row heel. Anyone who finds it too tight across the instep here. Personally, I don't have that problem. And what I found is, because this method does give you extra stitches in this area, I found I had this extra fabric here on my heel. You can even see it on the sock blocker here. Now, I did try to kind of simulate how the sock would sit if I was actually wearing the completed sock and, you know, with some negative ease in the length and stuff, but I still found too much fabric in my heel area. And so while I think it's a brilliant heel, you can work it from the top down or the toe up. I think it looks really nice. and it's really tidy. I like everything about it except the fact that it doesn't fit me. Also a downside for me is that I'm really picky about my stripes and the way my yarns pool or don't pool. If you've watched for any length of time, you will know that. And that is a disadvantage for me. It's hard to line it up ahead of time to know how things are going to play out here across the gusset and whether you're, or across the instep, and whether you're going to end up with the stripes working up the same, or whether you're going to end up with like one strand of one color that goes through here, or one row I should say of one color that goes through here. So for self-striping yarns, for me, I'm not sure it's the best solution. For fit, it definitely isn't the best solution, but I would be tempted to try this heel on a different sock for someone else. Maybe the next time I knit my husband a pair of socks, I'll give it a try and see how it fits him, because I do really, really like the actual heel. It's just not right for me. So what I've decided to do is take these back to kind of mid, I'm going to find about the 8-inch mark, mid stripe in one of these speckly stripes, and I'm going to do a short row heel in this gold color. I think it's Warm Honey, I think. It's also a Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. It's a mini skein I had bought, and I don't know if you can tell, there's some gold in here. So I thought that would pick up that gold really nicely. And I guess it's, if you're thinking St. Patrick's Day, here's a little bit of, you know, gold at the end of the rainbow. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so I do love the yarn, love how it's working up, and I think it'll look cute with the gold heels. So I'm anxious to kind of get that ready to work again so that I can go back to making it my mindless knitting, because I've had to think a little bit more on it than I normally do for a pair of socks. But I would not say any of that time has been wasted. I quite enjoy experimenting with different methods, and if I don't get something right the first time, I will take it back and try it again and try it again. And as I will say, by the time I finally reached this point in the socks, you know, I wasn't loving it as much as I did the first time I worked it, but to me, none of that's time wasted. You always learn something, and I'm glad to have tried out this heel. Something else I've been fiddling around with this week is my Knit Me Baby One More Time by Mary Annarella. That's her pattern company is Lyrical Knits. I'm just searching for the pattern. This is the these are the images off of the pattern page, and I am knitting it up very similarly to this one that a Ravelry user did. That's Judy Knits a Lot. Or, sorry, Judy Knits a Lot Now is her Ravelry name. And I just liked the way it looked with the 3 colors and the speckly yarn in the middle and this, you know, graduated striping. So I totally ripped off her idea, and I am making mine with 3 colors of All Points North yarn. It is the Sweet Sock base, which is 85% superfine superwash merino, 15% nylon, and there's the label if you're interested. And I am knitting it with Olive You, like olive, like the one kind of olive you eat, Raindrops, and Anchors Away. And I really like how it's working up so far. So I hadn't really intended, as I showed you last week, I had cast on a new sweater, actually also by Lyrical Knits. But I just started thinking about this one and thinking, you know, the season for wearing it is like now. So if I hurried up and finished it, I could actually wear this a few times this year before I pack it away. So here's how it's coming along. As you can see, I'm on the bottom ribbing, but I have put that on hold for a little bit. So yesterday I picked up around the neck and I substituted, the pattern calls for 2x2 rib. I've substituted a 1x1 twisted rib. I just really like the way it looks. And I wasn't sure if, I thought I would try Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off, and I was hoping it wouldn't be too stretchy. But it definitely stretches to get it on over my head, but I think it fits or sits really well, and especially when I put this on, it sits really nicely around my neck. So I'm glad I chose that. I know on some of my sweaters, I have gone ahead with a regular bind off and just find them a little bit constricting around my wrists or around the neck. So the reason I put this on hold, I'm like supposed to be 4 rows from the bind off here. One thing is I'm a little bit worried about having enough of the speckly yarn. I have, after doing the body, I have about 14 grams, and I've been alternating the 2 balls of the same skein. I took the skein, divided it in half, and I've been alternating row by row, just because when I was working it in the round just off the skein, the speckles and short areas of dyeing were pooling in a way I didn't like, and this helped break that up. So I was really glad with that choice, even though it's kind of a nuisance to have to do it. So I'm going to continue to do the same on the sleeves, but I'm not 100% sure I have enough. So here's my plan. I'm going to knit the sleeves, and I'm going to see how far this goes. If I need more, I will take back the sweater to a little bit before where these graduated stripes begin, and I'll take the yarn from the body of the sweater, and I will begin this striping a little bit earlier than I did. I was following this pattern or this project fairly closely. Now I think I might have started the striping a little bit later at the top than she did. When I look at it now, I think there's more space on mine between the neckband and the first stripe, but it might just be the way the picture looks. But she did all the striping, and then she went right into the bottom ribbing, and that's what I did. Even before I had the concern about having enough yarn, I've been wondering if maybe the sweater would look better if the striping started a little bit earlier, and if there was a little bit more navy of plain knitting before I start the ribbing. So I was kind of toying with taking that back anyway. The sweater is a pretty good length. I think once the 4 rows and the bind off are done, I think it'll be about the same length as my 2 So Faded sweaters. I've been comparing it with that, and I do like the length. So if I have enough yarn for the sleeves, I'll probably just finish out the ribbing and be done with it. But and that, of course, I have to remember that with a little more ribbing, there will be more navy on the bottom. I think part of it is just that it looks like not quite enough proportionately, but that's because the ribbing's not finished yet. So there's the plan. Work the sleeves, cross fingers, hope I have enough of the speckly yarn to just finish them out. I'm sure I'll have plenty of the green. And then finish the bottom ribbing and be done. but I know that if I don't have enough of the speckly yarn for the sleeves, I have a backup plan and I can get more yarn from here and then just bump up this striping a little bit. And you know, it won't be a problem because this yarn is still connected to the ball, so I'll just have to rewind it and start over. So I would love, 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 love to finish this in the next week or so. We will see. I am going to have some knitting time, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So it is possible. Okay, just gonna lean down, pick up my bag and put this back in. So those are the only two knitting projects that I've been working on this week. But I have continued to work on my weaving. And so I took the camera out to the loom and filmed a couple of clips about my latest weaving project. So I am going to put those in right here and then I'll be right back. Last week I showed you my latest weaving project, and at the time I said it was a good chance that the next time you saw it, it would look entirely different, and that is definitely the case. That is because I took out what little weaving I had done and I started over. So just to refresh, I'm using two different kinds of Fiber Knit Dyeworks yarn. The first, which is what I warped my loom with, is this gray. It is called Ridgetop Fingering, and it is an 80/20 Romney Falkland non-superwash wool. And this is the soot colorway. And what I'm using for the weft, which is the strands that go this direction, is Twist Fingering. It is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is also a non-superwash wool, and it is a self-striping colorway called Deep Fall. There are 5 different colors that stripe. And what's really fun and interesting about this yarn is that some sections are plain like this, while others have this black twist, and that adds some extra interest. It creates striping not only from the color changes, but also when this goes through the weft, you have some striping that occurs. So my initial thought is, rather than just stripe them, you know, in a very straightforward fashion, just let the yarn do the work, I thought it would be fun to overlap some colors in some areas and create like a fade effect. So what I decided to do is, when I began my weaving, I offset the beginning points on the 2 shuttles, because I divided the yarn into 2 shuttles. I decided to offset the beginning part by a half a stripe, so that in some areas the same colorway would stripe with itself, so you would have some solid sections. And in other sections, this color would alternate with the next color stripe, and you'd end up with some stripes that are this color being alternated with stripes of that color. And eventually, you would have all the stripes be this color. And initially, I started with just a straight weave, and also I alternated each pass of the shuttle by 1. So I would go through once with one shuttle and then once with another, and I just alternated it. But I felt like there wasn't enough concentration of the colors just doing one pass. So I decided to do 2 passes. So now I'm alternating 2 passes with one shuttle, 2 passes with another. I also decided that rather than just having a plain, boring, straight weave, that this would be a good opportunity to try out my new wavy shuttle. Because the yarns are non-superwash, they have quite a bit of stick to them. So this is my wavy shuttle, and you can see there are 2 concentrations of waves. This one is more wavy, this is a more subtle wave. So I decided to use the wavier one. And it's turned out really well so far. So I'm hoping you can see here, this section at the beginning is where the wine color was every row. And so every row here is wine. And then this is where the wine and the taupe started to alternate. So I ended up with 2 strands of taupe and 2 strands of wine. And that gradually changed. And then I ended up here where the section was all taupe. And now I've introduced the turquoise. So I have 2 strands of turquoise alternating with 2 strands of taupe. And I'm just getting to the section here where I now have 2 strands of turquoise alternating with 2 strands of turquoise so that I have a whole turquoise section. And then you can also see that these twist sections are adding additional striping. So it's quite fun. I don't know how well you can see because of where the lighting is. I know there's some light coming through from underneath, but I'm hoping you can get a sense of how this is working up. Now, part of me is wondering if maybe the warp background is just too light, doesn't show off the colors quite as well as it could, but it's also very neutral, and that's just part of experimenting. It's yarn that I had in my stash. I thought it would blend with the colors of the yarn really well, and that's how you learn things. Now, one thing I find really interesting with using the wavy shuttle is that where the dip occurs, these strands are ending up further apart, and you can see the color of the weft more concentrated. And then where the shuttle's going like this, the threads are more close together, and you're actually seeing more of the warp color here. So in addition to the interest of just having the waves, you're also getting almost like a vertical striping occurring too. So that's really interesting to me. It's been really fun to see this work up. I am going to see if I can set up my camera in such a way that I can give you a little bit of a look at how it is to weave with a wavy shuttle. Right now, because I wanted you to be able to see, 3 colors at once, I've got my warp wound right back to my heddle here. But normally I'd work up to about here and then wind the weaving onto my back here, or front of the loom, I should say. So I'm going to get this kind of reset up in order to be able to weave, and then I'm going to show you how the wavy shuttle works. It's very cool. One of the hardest parts of filming any sort of demonstration or tutorial is finding just the right combination of lighting and camera angle. And the way I had both my loom and camera set up in the last shot didn't make it practical for me to actually weave. So I have moved to a new location. This is actually where I usually weave. It's in the corner of my living room, and I am hoping that this new setup will work. So if you are going to weave in the traditional manner, the first thing you do is raise or lower your heddle depending on which way you need to weave next. So I need to raise mine up, and then you would take your shuttle full of yarn, you would pass it through the shed, through here, and then you would use the heddle to bring that strand of yarn forward, and you would tap it in line with the rest of your weaving. However, when you use a wavy shuttle, you have to do something a little different. So I guess there are 2 ways you can use the wavy shuttle. One is that you can wind your yarn onto it and use it to both pass your yarn through the shed and to beat it into place, or you can just use it to beat the yarn into place. And for various reasons, including the fact that I am actually weaving with 2 different shuttles, I decided to just leave this bare and just use it to beat my weft into place. So I have raised the heddle here. And this yarn is very sticky. So what I've been doing every pass is putting my hands in here and just making sure that the warp threads are separated, because if I don't, I have the danger of passing the shuttle over under one of the wrong threads. So I'm going to take my shuttle, I'm going to pass it through. I'm going to line up my thread as best as I can. And then I'm going to use my wavy shuttle to beat it into place. So what you do is you insert the shuttle in the shed, and so half the threads are underneath it, half the threads are above it, and then you just gently use the edge of it to beat that thread into place. So now I pass this thread under the existing one. And now I'm going to lower the heddle because I have to go the other direction. And so again, I'm going to take, especially this way, you might be able to see the strands are all kind of sticking together. So I'm going in here, kind of separate the strands. I'm going to pass this through. Make sure it's lying nice and straight over here, catching this thread. And then again, I'll insert the shuttle, or the shuttle in the thread, and then I'll just gently press those yarns into place. So now I'm going to do 2 passes with the other shuttle. So I will lift the heddle up, unstick the warp, take the other shuttle, pass it through, line up the threads, take the wavy shuttle, gently press those threads in place. One more. So in this case, on this side, I always press the thread under the existing one. This one, I bring it over. It's just a way of securing them on the sides. So now I'm going to lower the heddle, unstick the warp, pass this through, make sure that this is sitting nicely over here and catching that thread. Kind of line it up. And so on. So as you can see here, hopefully, this is just turquoise alternating with turquoise at the moment. And then you can see where the twisted areas have created these dark stripes. So as you can see, I have been having fun playing with my loom. Just in case the angles weren't quite right, I'll put a photo in here of an overhead view. I took this last week early on in the reweaving of this scarf. When I realized that I was going to have to switch out shuttles every pass, and I was going to have to kind of unstick the warp threads every pass, I thought that this process might be rather tedious. But it isn't, surprisingly. Like all the weaving I've done so far, it is very meditative. You just kind of get into a rhythm. I usually listen to a podcast or an audiobook while I weave, and it's just a different process than knitting. It's not the same kind of headspace, but it's not the same rhythm, but it has its own rhythm, and your mind just relaxes. I find it very, very meditative and relaxing and fun. Above all, I've just so enjoyed weaving, and I can't wait to finish this one up and put another project on the loom. I hope I don't let as much time go by between projects as last time. All right, that is it for projects this week. Not tons going on. We finally did manage to get our family together for supper on the weekend. So our whole immediate family joined us on Saturday, including our son's new girlfriend. And, oh, there's the garbage truck across the street. You're probably going to hear the squeaking from it. And she fit in just effortlessly. She had brought a cake for dessert, and it wasn't 10 minutes, and she was there icing her cake with the help of our 7-year-old granddaughter. And you'd think they'd known each other always. She was very relaxed with her and chit-chatting, and just seemed to get along really well with everybody. No shortage of conversation, and that's really a great thing to see. So I asked our younger son a couple of days ago, he had called about something, so I asked him if we passed. And apparently we did, and so did she. So that's good. I really hope, I know he's really crazy about her, and I really hope this is a long-term thing, because I can very easily see her, at least on first and second impressions, see her fitting well into our family. So let's see. So that brings us to the end of our episode, except for something good, and it's something really, really good. On Friday, Cameron and I are going to go spend the weekend with my mom. For those of you who don't know, my mom lives about a 3-hour drive from here. She did not make it down for Christmas this year because the highway was cut off due to widespread flooding and mudslides and highway outages that happened here in British Columbia in November. The highway is repaired now. The Omicron strain it's still out there, but numbers are dropping, so she's feeling safer about having visitors. Now we're all triple vaxxed, and so we're about as safe as we can be. So I'm so looking forward to spending time with her. We haven't seen her since the fall, and we haven't spent time all by ourselves with her for quite a while. I'm not even sure the last time. Maybe sometime in the summer. We used to always make a point of going up to see her in the winter time, spending a weekend, but because of COVID, that hasn't happened for the past couple of years. So really excited about that. So yeah, we're gonna leave Friday. Cameron has like a meeting, virtual meeting, Friday afternoon, and as soon as that's over, we'll head out, and then we're actually taking Monday off and coming home Monday morning, so we'll have 2 full days together. The Briar is on. That is our Canadian Men's Curling Championships, and my mom loves to watch curling, as do we, so I imagine part of the weekend will be spent watching the finals for that. We'll also take a run out to the cabins. They're about 17 kilometers from where my mom lives, and we'll take a walk around there, see how things are. We're going to go out for dinner one night to the pub. We're going to bring some Chinese food in another night. it's going to be a nice, relaxing, uh, you know, leisurely weekend. So I'm really excited about that. So I will definitely take my socks in the car for trip knitting and or travel knitting, and then I can work on my Knit Me Baby while I am watching curling. So yeah, perfect knitting weekend coming up, and I'm really happy about that. It is beautiful and sunny here, but it is windy and cold. I went out to bring the empty garbage or recycling containers in earlier, and it was chilly out there, but it is blue sky. I don't see a cloud looking out this way. It's so nice to see the sunshine. Spring is definitely on its way. The crocuses are up. Some of the trees are starting to bud out. There's other bulbs that are up but not blooming. So definitely spring is on its way, but there's still a nip in the air, and I don't know if it's still predicted, but we were potentially going to get a few snow showers in a few days. So we'll see if that pans out. So yeah, winter's not quite done with us yet. I hope the weather is good wherever you happen to be, whether it be in the northern or southern hemisphere. It's a changing of the seasons wherever you are. So I think on that note, I'll just say thanks as always for watching. Thank you as always for all your messages, and everyone have a good week ahead. Take care, and I will see you soon. I am planning to record next week, even though it'll be a short week, but it might be a day later than usual. We'll see. If you don't see me then, you'll see me the next week. So take care until then. Bye for now.